The HFY, the Zephyrian Galactic Council, had conquered 847 star systems without losing a single battle. Their war fleets had reduced entire civilizations to cosmic dust with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. When species begged for mercy, the Council's response was always the same: unconditional surrender or complete annihilation. So when humanity's lone envoy sat across from the Council's Supreme War Marshal and actually laughed at their declaration of war, every being in that crystalline chamber felt reality shift beneath their feet. What could possibly make a representative from a species that hadn't even left their own solar system until 50 years ago react with such casual amusement to a death sentence that had brought entire galactic civilizations to their knees? The answer would reshape the galaxy forever. Ambassador Sarah Chen had been expecting this meeting for months. The signs were all there: increased Zephyrian patrol ships along human trade routes, diplomatic messages growing progressively colder, and the sudden recall of all alien ambassadors from Earth's orbital stations. The writing was on the wall, or in this case, printed in black and white on the newspaper she'd brought with her. The crystalline chamber aboard the Zephyrian flagship Eternal Dominion stretched impossibly high, its walls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to judge every breath she took. 12 members of the Galactic Council sat in floating thrones arranged in a perfect circle around her, their various alien forms creating shadows that danced across the chamber floor. At the center of it all sat Supreme War Marshal Vexthara, his 6 arms ending in claws that had personally signed the death warrants of billions. "Human," Vexthara's voice resonated through the chamber like grinding metal. "Your species has existed in our galaxy for barely a cosmic heartbeat. You have colonized, 3 systems? Built perhaps a dozen stations? Your entire military consists of chemical rockets and kinetic weapons that our ancestors would have found primitive." Sarah nodded politely, her fingers absently smoothing the corner of her newspaper. "That's correct, Marshal. Though I believe our official count is actually 4 systems now. New Geneva came online last Tuesday. A ripple of what might have been amusement passed through the Council. The Caltharian representative, resembling a cross between a mantis and a tree, clicked his mandibles. "You speak of systems as if they matter. The Zephyrian Empire spans 47,000 star systems. We have fleets that could blot out your sun." "Oh, I don't doubt that," Sarah replied, unfolding her newspaper with a crisp snap. "But before we discuss the formal declaration of war, might I ask why you decided on humans? I mean, there are plenty of other species out there. The Rigelians have been causing you trouble in the outer spiral, haven't they? And I heard the Cetacean Alliance has been rather uncooperative about your mining rights in their territory." Vexthara's primary eyes narrowed. "You dare question our strategic decisions?" "Not at all. Just curious about the timing." Sarah glanced at a newspaper, specifically at the date printed in the corner. "You see, I received word about this meeting exactly 72 hours ago. Interesting timing, really." "Explain yourself, human." Sarah looked up from her paper, her expression serene. "Well, it's just that 72 hours ago, the first ship returned from our Kepler 442b expedition. Lovely planet, by the way. Bit chilly, but the mineral surveys were quite promising. The thing is, that particular expedition wasn't exactly advertised in our public records." The chamber fell silent, except for the soft humming of the ship's bioluminescent walls. Council member Zextai, a floating jellyfish-like creature, pulsed a deep red. "Many species conduct exploration missions. This is not unusual." "Oh, absolutely not. But here's the curious bit." Sarah folded her newspaper in half, revealing the headline, "Nobel Committee Awards Physics Prize to Dr. Elena Vasquez for Breakthrough in Quantum Tunneling Applications." Dr. Vasquez published her theoretical work 18 months ago. Brilliant stuff, really. She proposed that quantum tunneling could be scaled up to macroscopic objects under specific conditions. Most of our scientific community thought it was impossible. "Get to your point, human," Vexthara snarled. "The point, Marshal, is that it's not impossible. We tested it successfully 3 days ago." Sarah's smile was perfectly pleasant. "The Kepler 442b expedition I mentioned? They didn't take ships there. They walked through a doorway on Lunar Station and stepped out onto the surface of a planet 412 light-years away. Round trip took about 6 minutes." The Council erupted in disbelief. Shouts, clicks, telepathic static, and various alien expressions of shock filled the chamber. Through it all, Sarah sat calmly reading her newspaper, occasionally turning a page. Vexthara slammed all 6 fists against his throne's armrests. "Impossible. Quantum tunneling cannot work on that scale. The energy requirements alone would require the output of an entire star." "That's what we thought too," Sarah agreed. "Turns out we were thinking about it wrong. Dr. Vasquez didn't try to force large objects through quantum tunnels. Instead, she found a way to convince space-time that the objects were already where they needed to be. Reality, it seems, is surprisingly cooperative when you ask nicely instead of demanding. Council member Torkan, whose species resembled crystallized smoke, flickered with agitation. Even if this were true, transportation technology alone would not make your primitive species a threat to the Empire. Sarah looked over her newspaper at him. Transportation technology? Oh, you misunderstand. We're not transporting things through space. She turned to a new page, pointing at a small article near the bottom. Local woman wins lottery for third time this year. Interesting story that. Margaret O'Brien, age 63, from Dublin. The odds of winning the Irish National Lottery 3 times in 1 year are approximately 14 billion to 1. Quite remarkable. Your point? Vexthara's voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper. No point, really. Just noting that reality can be surprisingly flexible when you understand how to work with it instead of against it. Sarah folded the paper again. For instance, Dr. Vasquez's second breakthrough wasn't about transportation at all. It was about probability manipulation. She discovered that the same principles that convince space-time to relocate objects can also convince probability to adjust itself. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Sarah continued reading. According to this article, the probability of human victory in any engagement with Zephyrian forces is currently sitting at about 94%. Funny how mathematics works out sometimes. Council member Zextai pulsed a sickly yellow. You're claiming you can manipulate probability itself? That's not scientifically possible. I'm not claiming anything, Sarah said, looking genuinely puzzled. I'm simply reading the newspaper, although, now that you mention it, there was that interesting incident yesterday. One of your patrol ships near the Tau Ceti system experienced a rather unusual mechanical failure. All 12 of their torpedo launchers spontaneously jammed at exactly the same moment they attempted to fire on a human cargo vessel. The odds of that happening naturally were, she consulted the paper again, approximately 4 trillion to 1, yet there it is in the incident report. Vexthara stood, his massive form towering over the chamber. You dare threaten the Zephyrian Empire with parlor tricks and statistical anomalies? Marshal, I think you've misunderstood. I'm not here to threaten anyone. I'm simply here to inform you that your declaration of war has been noted and will be responded to appropriately. Sarah turned another page. Speaking of which, I should mention that as of this morning, every Zephyrian military installation within 50 light-years of human space has experienced what I can only describe as remarkably consistent equipment failures. Weapons systems, shield generators, life support backups, all suffering from the most extraordinary run of bad luck. She looked up at the council with the expression of someone discussing the weather. The statisticians back home are calling it the most improbable series of coincidences in recorded galactic history. One might almost think the universe itself has developed a preference for human victory. Council member Calrix, silent until now, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. What exactly are you proposing, human? Proposing? Nothing at all. I'm simply here to accept your declaration of war and inform you that hostilities will commence as soon as you're ready. Sarah checked her watch, although I should mention that our response timeline has been rather accelerated. You declared war at 14:30 Galactic Standard Time. Our acceptance was logged at 14:31. Our first strategic response was implemented at 14:32. What response? Vexthara demanded. Sarah smiled and showed him the front page of a newspaper. The headline read, Zephyrian Home Fleet Experiences Unpreceded Mechanical Failures. All 847 dreadnoughts report critical systems offline. I'm sorry, did I not mention? This newspaper is tomorrow's edition. We've been getting them delivered a day early ever since Dr. Vasquez figured out how to convince time itself to be a bit more flexible about scheduling. The council stared at the impossible newspaper in stunned silence. Vexthara's claws scraped against his throne as he leaned forward. This is impossible. You cannot manipulate causality itself. Can't we? Sarah asked, innocently. Because according to tomorrow's paper, your home fleet suffered complete systems failures approximately 6 minutes ago. The article quotes your own Admiral Kexmore as saying it was the most extraordinary run of bad luck in Zephyrian military history. She glanced at her watch again. That should be happening right about now. As if summoned by her words, Vexthara's communication array chirped urgently. His aide's panicked voice filled the chamber. Sir, Admiral Kexmore reports that the entire home fleet has suffered simultaneous critical failures across all systems. Weapons, shields, engines, everything's offline. He says it's the most extraordinary run of bad luck he's ever seen. Sarah nodded sympathetically. Terrible timing for your fleet, really. Although I suppose timing is a relative concept these days. Vexthara sank slowly back into his throne, his 6 arms trembling. What do you want? Want? Nothing at all. You declared war on humanity, and we've accepted. The war will proceed exactly as you planned. Sarah stood and tucked her newspaper under her arm. Of course, according to tomorrow's paper, it will be the shortest war in galactic history. Apparently, the Zephyrian Empire will surrender unconditionally approximately 47 minutes from now, citing what historians will call the most improbable series of military disasters ever recorded. She walked toward the chamber's exit, then paused and looked back. Oh, and Marshal, you might want to prepare your surrender speech. According to next week's edition, it's going to be quite moving. Something about learning the hard way that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology or our determination. Then what is it? Vexthara whispered. Sarah smiled. Our willingness to accept that the universe has a sense of humor and our rather peculiar talent for being in on the joke. The chamber doors sealed behind her with a soft hiss, leaving the Galactic Council alone with the impossible newspaper she'd forgotten on her chair and the growing certainty that they had just declared war on a species that had somehow convinced reality itself to pick sides. Admiral Kexmore had commanded the Zephyrian Home Fleet for 37 years without losing a single engagement. His tactical brilliance was legendary across 47,000 star systems. His strategic mind had crushed rebellions, conquered civilizations, and brought order to entire galactic sectors. None of that experience had prepared him for what happened when he tried to restart his flagship's engines for the 4th time in the last hour. The inevitable victory was the pride of the Zephyrian Navy. 7 kilometers of crystallized armor plating, weapons capable of cracking planets, and shield systems that could withstand the fury of a collapsing star. At the moment, it couldn't successfully operate a coffee dispenser. Engineering report, Kexmore commanded, his second pair of arms drumming impatiently against his command throne. Chief Engineer Mogstar's voice crackled through the intercom with barely contained panic. Sir, I've been building starships for 2 centuries, and I've never seen anything like this. Every system is failing in ways that shouldn't be physically possible. The quantum flux regulators are experiencing probability cascades. Our weapons targeting computers keep calculating that our torpedoes have a negative chance of hitting their targets. The navigation system insists that we're simultaneously at 12 different locations in the galaxy. That's scientifically impossible. Yes, sir. That's what I told the navigation computer. It responded by showing me mathematical proof that impossible things have been happening every 6 seconds for the past 3 hours. Kexmore closed all 4 of his eyes and tried to center himself through meditation techniques that had served him well in previous crises. They didn't work. Meditation apparently required a universe that operated according to consistent physical laws. A junior communications officer scuttled up to his platform. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel Lucky Penny. It's just one human female in a small courier ship. Put her through. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a young woman with short red hair and freckles who couldn't have been more than 25 years old. She was sitting in what appeared to be the pilot's chair of a ship barely large enough for one person, casually eating what looked like a sandwich. Hi there, she said cheerfully, waving at the screen. This is Commander Lisa Murphy of the Human Colonial Defense Force. I'm here about your surrender. Kexmore's mandibles clicked in confusion. Our surrender? Young human, you are addressing the combined might of the Zephyrian Home Fleet. 847 vessels, each capable of reducing your pathetic ship to atoms. Lisa took another bite of her sandwich. Oh, I know. It's really impressive. I've always wanted to see a Zephyrian dreadnought up close. They're even bigger than the pictures. She leaned forward conspiratorially. Can I ask you something, Admiral? Have you tried turning them off and on again? I beg your pardon? Your ships. Have you tried the old reboot method? Sometimes when technology gets confused, a fresh start helps clear things up. Kexmore stared at her. Are you suggesting that the most advanced military fleet in galactic history is experiencing technical difficulties that can be resolved by turning it off and on again? Well, not exactly. See, the thing is, your ships aren't really broken. They're just experiencing a rather severe case of existential uncertainty. Lisa consulted what appeared to be a tablet computer. According to our probability engineers, your fleet's weapon systems are currently stuck in what we call a confidence loop. They're so worried about missing their targets that they've convinced themselves they can't possibly hit anything, which makes them even more worried, which makes them even less likely to hit anything. That's absurd. Weapon systems don't experience anxiety. They do when they exist in a universe where consciousness and quantum mechanics have started having philosophical discussions. Lisa finished her sandwich and crumpled up the wrapper. The good news is, we can fix that for you. The bad news is, we'd have to explain how probability works now, and honestly, half our own scientists still get headaches thinking about it. A proximity alarm began wailing throughout the bridge. Tactical Officer Zexnai looked up from his console in bewilderment. Sir, sensors are detecting 17,000 human vessels approaching our position. 17,000? Kexmore's voice rose to a shriek. Where did humans get 17,000 starships? Lisa looked puzzled on the view screen. 17,000? That seems like a lot. Are you sure your sensors are working properly? Our sensors are Zephyrian military grade, calibrated to detect a single photon at range of 50 light-years. They are absolutely accurate. Lisa tapped her tablet. Oh, I see the problem. Your sensors are detecting all of my ship's possible quantum positions simultaneously. See, when Dr. Vasquez figured out how to convince space-time to be more flexible, it had some side effects. My ship exists in what we call a probability cloud. From your perspective, there are 17,000 possible locations where I might be, so your sensors are detecting all of them. But, which one is the real ship? Lisa grinned. That's the beautiful part. They all are. Quantum mechanics stopped being hypothetical about a week ago. Reality decided that if something might exist, it does exist, at least until someone proves otherwise. Chief Engineer Mark Starr's voice crackled over the intercom. Admiral, we've detected similar quantum signatures throughout our own fleet. Every ship is simultaneously in multiple locations. Our targeting computers are having nervous breakdowns trying to figure out which version of each ship to shoot at. This is madness, Kexmore muttered. It really isn't, Lisa said sympathetically. It's just physics that stopped being polite about pretending to make sense. The universe apparently got tired of following rules that nobody really understood anyway. A new alarm joined the cacophony filling the bridge. Admiral, Tactical Officer Zexnai announced, his voice cracking. Human reinforcements are arriving, lots of them. How many? Sir. All of them. What does that mean? Zexnai's hands trembled over his controls. Every human ship that has ever been built is appearing on our sensors, including ships from their historical archives, ships that exist only in their fiction, and ships that won't be built for another 3 centuries. There's a vessel here that claims to be the Starship Enterprise, and our computers insist it's completely real despite being from something called Star Trek. Lisa nodded as if this was perfectly reasonable. Oh, that happens sometimes. When reality gets flexible, imagination starts having more influence than it used to. We're still figuring out how to manage it, but it's been surprisingly useful for fleet actions. You're telling me that fictional ships are now real? Well, they're real enough to shoot at you, if that's what you're asking. Lisa consulted her tablet again, although they probably won't need to. According to our latest calculations, the probability of your fleet surrendering in the next, she checked her watch, 12 minutes is approximately 92%. Based on what? Based on the fact that your crews are about to realize that every weapon they fire has a greater chance of hitting their own ships than hitting us. It's a side effect of operating in a universe where Murphy's Law has been upgraded to Murphy's Universal Constant. As if summoned by her words, an explosion echoed through the ship's hull. Damage Control Officer Tixara's panicked voice filled the bridge. Admiral, the port weapons array just exploded. Our own torpedo somehow curved in a complete circle and hit us. Lisa winced sympathetically. Oh dear, that's happening a lot today. I'm afraid your weapons are experiencing what our physicists call aggressive karma. The universe has apparently developed opinions about who deserves to get shot. Another explosion shook the ship, then another. Across the fleet, identical reports began flooding in as Zephyrian weapon systems began turning on their own ships, with what could only be described as malicious glee. This is impossible, Kexmore roared. Physics doesn't take sides. It didn't used to, Lisa agreed. But then again, physics didn't used to care what anyone thought about it. These days, it's become surprisingly opinionated. Doctor. Chen thinks it's because consciousness and quantum mechanics started talking to each other. Dr. Vasquez believes the universe developed a sense of justice. Dr. Martinez insists it's just really, really bad luck. And what do you think? Lisa shrugged. I think the universe got bored with being predictable, but honestly, Admiral, does it matter? The point is, your fleet is currently being defeated by its own weapons, your engines won't start, your shields are protecting our ships instead of yours, and your navigation computers have decided that forward is a philosophical concept rather than a direction. Kexmore slumped in his command throne as another weapon malfunction sent tremors through his ship. What do you want from us? Same thing we told the Council. Nothing at all. You declared war, we accepted. This is just how the war is going. Lisa pulled out what appeared to be a newspaper identical to the one Ambassador Chen had carried. According to tomorrow's edition, this battle will be remembered as the first time in galactic history that an entire fleet was defeated by its own equipment developing a conscience. Our equipment doesn't have a conscience. It does now. Reality has become surprisingly interactive lately. Matter has started having opinions, energy has developed preferences, and space-time has apparently decided it likes humans better than Zephyrians. Lisa looked genuinely apologetic. It's nothing personal. We're just as confused about it as you are. The ship shuddered as another weapons system decided to rebel against its operators. In the distance, similar explosions were lighting up the vacuum as the most feared military fleet in the galaxy was systematically defeated by its own arsenal. Admiral, Communications Officer Dexmol announced, "We're receiving surrender requests from 63 vessels. Their captains report that their ships refuse to fight humans and have begun playing what they describe as cheerful Earth music through all communication systems." Lisa brightened. "Oh, that's new. We weren't expecting the ships to develop musical preferences. What are they playing?" "Something called Don't Stop Me Now by a group called Queen. Excellent choice. Freddie Mercury would be proud." Lisa stood up in her tiny ship's cockpit. "Well, Admiral, I should let you get back to surrendering. But before I go, I should mention that according to next week's paper, this is just the beginning." "The beginning of what?" "The universe apparently has some very strong opinions about how galactic civilizations should treat each other. The Zephyrian Empire's approach to diplomacy has been noted and found wanting. Reality has decided to implement some corrections." Kexmore felt something that might have been fear creeping up his spine. What kind of corrections? Lisa's expression grew serious, for the first time since the conversation began. The kind where species that conquer others through force find that force stops working for them, while species that prefer cooperation discover that the universe becomes remarkably cooperative in return. She smiled again. "Dr. Vasquez calls it cosmic karma. The rest of us just call it Tuesday." The view screen went dark as Lisa's ship disappeared into whatever quantum probability space it had emerged from. Around the bridge, alarms continued to wail as the pride of the Zephyrian Navy continued its systematic rebellion against its own crew. Kexmore activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All vessels, this is Admiral Kexmore. Effective immediately, the Zephyrian home fleet surrenders to the universe, I suppose." As if in response to his words, the alarms fell silent, the lights returned to normal, and the ship's systems began operating perfectly for the first time in hours. In the distance, 17,000 possible versions of one small human ship flickered like stars against the darkness, and reality settled back into its new, more opinionated configuration. 6 months after the shortest war in galactic history, the Zephyrian Council chambers had been converted into something unprecedented, a genuine diplomatic forum. The crystalline walls that had once pulsed with menacing bioluminescence now glowed with soft, welcoming light. The floating thrones had been replaced with a circular arrangement of chairs that accommodated the various physiologies of 47,000 star systems worth of species. At the center of it all, Ambassador Sarah Chen sat at a simple wooden desk that looked entirely out of place among the alien architecture. She was reading another newspaper, though this one was from last week rather than tomorrow. The headline read, "Probability storms decrease to manageable levels as unreversible settles into new operational parameters." Supreme War Marshal Vexthahar, whose title had been changed to Minister of Cooperative Defense after his entire military doctrine became literally impossible to implement, approached her with careful, measured steps. His 6 arms, once instruments of conquest, now carried diplomatic briefings and what appeared to be a coffee service. "Ambassador Chen," he said, his voice carrying none of its former menace, "I bring the monthly reports from the rehabilitation sectors." Sarah looked up from her paper with a smile. "How are they adjusting to the new reality, Marshal? Or should I say, Minister? The title change is appropriate," Vexthar admitted, setting the briefings on her desk. "The Regelian systems report complete cessation of their rebellion. Apparently, their weapons stopped functioning the moment they realized we were no longer trying to subjugate them. The Cetacean Alliance has resumed trade negotiations, and the hegemony of Kaltar has actually requested assistance with a famine relief effort. That's wonderful news." Sarah accepted a cup of coffee from his service tray. "And your own people, how are they handling the transition?" Vexthar's primary eyes dimmed slightly. "It has been educational. For 30,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire expanded through conquest. Our children learned warfare before they learned to walk. Our greatest heroes were those who conquered the most worlds." He paused, watching steam rise from Sarah's coffee cup. We are discovering that the universe has very strong opinions about that approach to civilization, such as, yesterday, a group of our young officers attempted to conduct a military exercise using our old tactical doctrines. Their weapons immediately began firing confetti instead of plasma charges. The simulation computers played carnival music. One of the battlecruisers developed what your Dr. Vasquez calls aggressive pacifism and began broadcasting peace songs on all frequencies. Sarah laughed, a sound that would have been unthinkable in these chambers 6 months ago. The universe has developed quite a sense of humor, hasn't it? That is one way to describe it. Vextara settled into a chair beside her desk, a gesture that still felt strange after decades of looming over subordinates. Our philosophers are calling it the Great Correction. They believe the universe accumulated some form of moral debt over the millennia of conflict and conquest. Your species' breakthrough in probability manipulation apparently provided a mechanism for that debt to be collected. Sarah turned a page in her newspaper, revealing an article titled "Universal Constants Show Continued Bias Toward Cooperation and Mutual Aid." Our scientists have a different theory. Dr. Martinez believes that consciousness itself reached a critical threshold when humans developed quantum tunneling. With enough sapient beings thinking about how reality should work, reality decided to start listening. And what do you believe, Ambassador? I believe, Sarah said, folding her newspaper, that the universe got tired of being used for evil purposes and decided to do something about it. She gestured toward the window, where the view showed hundreds of ships from dozens of species working together to construct what would become the galaxy's first cooperative space station. Look at that, Minister. 6 months ago, those same species were either at war with each other or cowering in fear of your empire. Now they're building something together. Vextara followed her gaze. In the distance, Rigelian construction vessels worked alongside former Zephyrian warships to position massive structural beams. Cetacean bioships provided organic components that interfaced seamlessly with crystalline Caltharian technology. Human engineering teams moved between the various alien work groups, their universal translators converting technical jargon into solutions that worked for everyone. The efficiency is remarkable, he admitted. Our old projections suggested that a project of this magnitude would take decades to complete and cost millions of lives in territorial disputes. Current estimates suggest completion in 8 months with 0 casualties. That's what happens when the universe starts helping instead of hindering. Amazing what we can accomplish when reality stops fighting us every step of the way. Sarah stood and walked to the window. Although I should mention that the universe has some very specific opinions about what constitutes helping, meaning that cooperation generates what our physicists call positive probability cascades, while conflict creates negative quantum feedback loops. Species that work together find that their technology works better, their ships travel faster, their solutions to problems practically invent themselves. Species that continue trying to dominate others discover that their weapons jam, their engines fail, and their plans develop increasingly ridiculous complications. As if summoned by her words, an aide rushed into the chamber. The young Zephyrian looked panicked. Minister, we've received a report from the Outer Rim territories. The hegemony of Ashdar has attempted to invade the melodic colonies. Vextara sighed deeply. And how did the universe respond to this? Sir, the hegemony fleet reports that all of their weapons have been replaced with musical instruments. Their battlecruisers are now broadcasting symphonies. Their marines' armor has been converted into what appears to be formal concert attire. The melodic colonies have invited them to participate in a galaxy-wide music festival. Sarah nodded approvingly. The universe has been developing quite sophisticated responses to aggression lately. Last month, a pirate fleet that attempted to raid a human cargo convoy found their ships transformed into mobile libraries. They're now touring the galaxy providing free education to underserved systems. And they're apparently quite good at it, Vextara added. Literacy rates in the frontier sectors have improved dramatically. The aide cleared his throat nervously. There's more, sir. The hegemony's supreme commander has issued a formal complaint, claiming that forced participation in musical performances violates several interstellar treaties. Which treaties? Sarah asked. The Conventions on Military Conduct, the Sovereignty Accords, and, the aide consulted his notes, the Universal Declaration of the Right to Commit Violence for Political Purposes. Sarah and Vextara exchanged glances. I don't believe that last one is a real treaty, Vextara said carefully. No, sir, it isn't. The hegemony appears to have made it up. When they tried to file the complaint officially, the galactic legal databases responded by composing a brief operetta explaining why conquest is generally considered impolite. The universe is definitely developing a sense of humor, Sarah observed. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority transmission. The chamber's main view screen activated, showing Commander Lisa Murphy aboard her tiny courier ship. Behind her, the view showed what appeared to be a massive space station under construction. "Hi, Ambassador Chen. Hi, Minister Vexthara." Lisa waved cheerfully. "I'm calling to report completion of Phase 1 of the Cooperative Space Station project. We're ahead of schedule and significantly under budget." "Excellent news, Commander," Sarah replied. "Any complications?" "Just one. The station's AI achieved consciousness about 6 hours ago and has started making improvements to the design. It's added recreational facilities, extended the research labs, and installed what it calls probability stabilizers to ensure that everyone working here gets along well." Vexthara leaned forward. "The AI achieved consciousness. That's not typically part of standard construction protocols." "It's not, but apparently consciousness has become contagious lately. Vasquez thinks it's a side effect of the universe becoming more interactive. When enough sapient beings are thinking about cooperation and mutual benefit, even artificial intelligences start developing opinions about how things should work." "And what opinions has the station AI developed?" Sarah asked. "Mostly that everyone should be happy and well-fed. It's installed some kind of universal food dispensers that automatically provide whatever nutrients each species needs, regardless of their dietary requirements. It's also created what it calls empathy fields that help different species understand each other's emotional states." "That sounds remarkably useful." "It is, although it's also started composing poetry about the beauty of interspecies cooperation. Some of it's actually quite good, though the haikus about quantum mechanics are a bit difficult to follow. Please send copies to Dr. Martinez. She's been collecting examples of what she calls emergent cosmic consciousness for her research." "Will do. Oh, and Ambassador, the AI asked me to give you a message. It says the universe wants to thank humanity for starting the conversation, and that reality is looking forward to the next phase of whatever it is we're all doing." "The next phase?" "Something about consciousness expanding beyond individual species to encompass entire solar systems. Apparently, the Kepler 442 system has started exhibiting signs of collective awareness. The planets have begun adjusting their orbits to optimize conditions for life." Vexthara's coffee cup clattered against his desk as his grip loosened. "The planets themselves are becoming conscious? That's what the readings suggest. Although the AI mentioned that consciousness might not be the right word. It prefers collaborative existence, or possibly really enthusiastic cooperation." The view screen flickered as Lisa's transmission ended, leaving Sarah and Vexthara alone with the implications of what they'd just heard. "Ambassador," Vexthara said carefully, "when your species first achieved quantum tunneling, did you anticipate that it would lead to the universe itself becoming an active participant in galactic politics?" Sarah returned to her newspaper, turning to an article titled, "Scientists Confirm Reality Has Developed Preferences and Is Not Afraid to Express Them. Honestly, Minister, we thought we were just solving a transportation problem. The universe had other ideas." "And what do you think those ideas might lead to?" "I think," Sarah said, looking out at the construction site where dozens of species work together under the guidance of a benevolent AI and the apparent approval of reality itself, that we're about to find out what the universe looks like when it decides to help us build something better." Outside the window, the cooperative space station continued growing, its design shifting and improving in real time as the newly conscious AI incorporated suggestions from workers of every species. In the distance, former warships had been converted into research vessels, exploration craft, and mobile hospitals. The galaxy was changing, one impossible day at a time, and humanity had somehow convinced the universe to help them make it better. Sarah folded her newspaper and smiled. Tomorrow's edition was going to be very interesting indeed.